Have you ever had that feeling? That sense that a woman in your life is giving you mixed signals? Maybe she's always finding excuses to talk to you, but then takes forever to respond to your texts. Or perhaps you catch her stealing glances at you across the room, but when you approach, she suddenly seems distant or uninterested. Here is the truth that no one is telling you. Many women are actively hiding their attraction to you, and there is a specific psychological reason behind it. This isn't about games or manipulation. It is about understanding a reality of female psychology that most men completely miss. I know how frustrating this can be. You are left questioning yourself, wondering if you are just imagining things, or if there is something real happening beneath the surface. That uncertainty can drive you crazy, making you second-guess every interaction and potentially causing you to make mistakes that actually push her away. I've coached countless men through exactly this situation, and I've seen how damaging it can be when you don't understand what is really happening. After studying female psychology for years and working with thousands of couples, I can tell you with confidence, women often deliberately hide their attraction, even when they are deeply interested in a man. This isn't random behavior. It is actually hardwired into female psychology, and understanding this mechanism will completely transform how you navigate your relationships with women. The female mind processes attraction differently than the male mind, and what seems like confusing behavior to you actually makes perfect sense when you understand the underlying psychology. Let me explain what is actually happening in her head. When a woman feels attraction for a man, she doesn't just experience desire. She simultaneously experiences a complex set of psychological responses that create conflicting emotions. The female brain is wired to carefully evaluate potential partners, and this evaluation happens on both a conscious and unconscious level. She is not just assessing your physical attributes or surface-level charm. She is unconsciously measuring your character, your reliability, your emotional stability, and your genuine interest in her. This is Evolutionary Psychology 101. Women have evolved to be selective because historically, choosing the wrong partner had far greater consequences for women than for men. Think about it this way. For most of human history, women faced enormous risks when selecting a partner. A poor choice could mean inadequate protection, insufficient resources, or being abandoned while pregnant or with young children. This created a powerful evolutionary pressure that shaped female psychology to include careful vetting mechanisms that still operate today, even in our modern world. The science is clear on this. Women are neurologically wired to approach attraction with caution, regardless of how strong that attraction might be. This brings us to the first reason women hide their attraction. They're retesting your persistence. When a woman deliberately conceals her interest, she's unconsciously creating a scenario where your actions will reveal important information about your character. Will you give up easily, showing a lack of genuine interest? Or will you demonstrate patience and understanding, qualities that indicate deeper value? Most men completely misinterpret this test. They either back off entirely, thinking she is not interested, or they become overly aggressive, trying to force a connection. Both approaches fail because they misunderstand what is happening beneath the surface. I remember working with a client named Mike who was completely confused by a woman in his social circle. She would engage him in deep conversations whenever they met at group events, laughing at his jokes and showing all the signs of interest. But when he texted her, her responses were brief, and sometimes took days to arrive. He was about to write her off completely when we discussed the psychology at play. Once he understood that her behavior was not rejection, but rather a form of unconscious testing, he adjusted his approach. Rather than pushing harder or giving up, he maintained consistent, confident engagement without neediness. Within weeks, her behavior completely changed, and she began actively pursuing him. The second reason women hide their attraction is much more practical. They re-protecting themselves from potential rejection. This might seem counterintuitive. After all, by hiding their interest, aren't they increasing the chances that nothing will happen? But there's a deeper psychological dynamic at work here. For many women, especially those who have experienced rejection or heartbreak in the past, openly showing interest creates vulnerability. The female mind processes rejection differently than the male mind, often internalizing it more deeply and connecting it to questions of self-worth. Research in neuroscience has shown that the female brain typically has stronger connections between emotional processing centers and centers for social judgment. What this means in practical terms is that rejection can trigger a more complex and potentially damaging emotional response for women. By maintaining plausible deniability about their attraction, women create a psychological buffer that protects them from the full impact of potential rejection. If you don't know she is interested, her ego remains intact if things done to progress. This protection mechanism operates at both conscious and unconscious levels. Sometimes a woman is fully aware that she is holding back her interest, while other times she might not even recognize the extent of her own attraction. The female mind is capable of compartmentalizing feelings in ways that the male mind typically doesn't, allowing women to continue engaging with a man they re-attracted to, while simultaneously maintaining emotional distance. It is not manipulation. It is self-preservation. I've seen this dynamic play out countless times with the men I coach. There was a guy named James who couldn't understand why a woman he was dating would show intense interest one day, then become almost cold the next. What he didn't realize was that her inconsistent behavior wasn't about him at all. It was about her managing her own vulnerability. Every time she felt herself getting too close too quickly, her protection mechanisms would kick in, causing her to create distance. Once James understood this pattern, he stopped taking her behavior personally and was able to create the emotional safety she needed to gradually let down her guard. The third reason women hide their attraction is perhaps the most counterintuitive of all. They're reassessing your confidence and self-worth. Here's what most men miss entirely. When a woman conceals her interest, she is unconsciously creating a situation where a man with genuine confidence will continue to engage with her authentically, while a man lacking confidence will either retreat or overcompensate. This distinction reveals crucial information about your character that simple conversation never could. Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. Throughout human history, female survival and the survival of offspring often depended on partnering with men who possessed genuine confidence and resilience. Not false bravado, but the kind of unwavering self-assurance that would enable a man to protect and provide regardless of circumstances. By testing your response to ambiguity, a woman gains insight into your true nature that goes far beyond what you tell her about yourself. This is why your reaction to her mixed signals is so critical. When you respond with frustration, neediness, or by pulling away entirely, you refailing the test without even realizing a test was being administered. But when you maintain consistent, confident engagement, unfazed by her apparent ambivalence, you demonstrate exactly the qualities she is unconsciously seeking. The research is clear. Women are more attracted to men whose feelings they are uncertain of. This isn't because women enjoy games. It is because uncertainty forces a deeper level of psychological engagement and evaluation. I coached a man named David who was confused by a coworker's behavior. She would seek him out for lunch, engage him in personal conversations, and laugh excessively at his jokes. All signs of interest. Yet when he suggested getting together outside of work, she became evasive, neither accepting nor clearly rejecting his invitation. His instinct was to press for a clear answer, but I advised him to simply maintain his confident, friendly approach without needing immediate resolution. Within 2 weeks, she was the one suggesting they meet outside of work. By not reacting to her ambivalence, he passed a test he didn't even know was being administered. The fourth reason women hide their attraction relates to social dynamics and reputation management. Despite significant progress in gender equality, women still face different social judgments than men when it comes to expressing sexual or romantic interest. The female mind is acutely aware of social perception, and many women have learned through experience that being too forward or available can lead to negative social consequences or misinterpretations of their character. This awareness operates at both conscious and unconscious levels. Even in progressive social circles, women often maintain what anthropologists call plausible deniability, behaving in ways that allow multiple interpretations of their actions. This isn't dishonesty. It is a sophisticated social adaptation that allows women to navigate complex social terrain while minimizing potential negative consequences. By creating ambiguity around their interest, women retain control over how their behavior is interpreted by both you and the broader social group. I worked with a client whose situation perfectly illustrates this dynamic. He had met a woman at his friend E.'s wedding who showed clear signs of interest during their conversation. They had an undeniable connection, talking for hours and sharing genuine laughs. But when his friend later mentioned that he had asked about her, she downplayed their interaction. He was confused and disappointed until he understood the social dynamics at play. She was navigating a complex social situation. Expressing too much interest too quickly might create assumptions about her character or lead to gossip within their shared social circle. Once he understood this wasn't ET personal rejection, but rather social navigation, he was able to create opportunities for connection outside the scrutiny of their mutual friends. The fifth reason relates to the power of anticipation and mystery in attraction. The human brain is wired to value what is not readily available, and women intuitively understand this psychological principle. By concealing the full extent of their interest, women create a state of anticipation and uncertainty that actually intensifies attraction. This is an ET conscious manipulation, as an intuitive understanding of how human desire works. Neuroscience has shown that uncertainty and intermittent reinforcement create stronger dopamine responses in the brain than consistent, predictable rewards. In plain English, this means that not knowing exactly where you stand with someone can create more intense feelings of attraction than always knowing they're interested. The female mind often intuitively leverages this neurological reality, creating situations where attraction can develop more deeply through the power of anticipation and mystery. I've seen this play out countless times in the relationships I've coached. There was a guy named Alex who couldn't understand why a woman who clearly enjoyed his company would sometimes take hours or even days to respond to messages, only to then engage in long, intimate conversations when she did reply. What he didn't realize was that this pattern, whether conscious or unconscious on her part, was actually intensifying their connection through the power of anticipation. Once he stopped seeing her behavior as problematic and instead recognized the psychological dynamic at play, he was able to appreciate the natural rhythm of their developing relationship, instead of trying to force consistent communication. Now, understanding why women hide their attraction is only half the equation. The real question is, how can you accurately identify when a woman is genuinely interested in you despite her efforts to conceal it? After years of studying female behavior and coaching men through these exact situations, I've identified 6 reliable signs that reveal hidden attraction. These aren't based on wishful thinking, they regrounded in behavioral psychology and observable patterns. Sign 1. She creates reasons to be in your proximity. This is one of the most reliable indicators of hidden interest because it requires deliberate action on her part. When a woman consistently finds ways to be near you, whether it's choosing the seat next to yours in a meeting, showing up at events she knows you'll attend, or creating coincidental encounters, she's demonstrating interest through her actions rather than her words. The female mind is strategic about proximity because physical closeness creates opportunities for connection, while maintaining plausible deniability about intention. I remember a client who was confused about a woman in his apartment building who seemingly always ended up in the laundry room at the same time as him, despite the facility being available 24/7. She would engage him in casual conversation, but never suggested meeting outside that context. He was unsure if she was just being neighborly until he started varying his laundry schedule randomly. And somehow, she still appeared about half the time. This wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate proximity seeking, a clear sign of interest that she wasn't verbally expressing. Sign 2. She displays different behavior with you than with others. This comparative behavior is crucial to recognize because it reveals special treatment that indicates hidden attraction. When a woman laughs more at your jokes than others, maintains longer eye contact with you, or shares more personal information with you than with others in your social circle, she is demonstrating preferential treatment that often indicates concealed interest. The key here is to observe her behavior in group settings. Does she orient her body toward you even when others are speaking? Does her voice take on a different quality when addressing you? Does she remember details about your life that you have only mentioned once? These subtle differences in how she engages with you versus others provide valuable insight into her true feelings, regardless of whether she is consciously concealing them. Sign 3. She exhibits unexplained nervousness or self-consciousness around you. This physiological response is particularly revealing because it's difficult to fake or conceal. When a woman is attracted to a man, her body often responds with subtle signs of nervousness, playing with her hair, adjusting her clothing, speaking slightly faster, or displaying a heightened awareness of her appearance when you re-present. These reactions stem from the body's autonomic nervous system, which responds to attraction with mild arousal similar to a stress response. Her conscious mind might be working to appear calm and uninterested, but these physiological tells often reveal what she is trying to hide. If you notice a typically confident woman becoming uncharacteristically self-conscious or nervous in your presence, it often indicates attraction she's not verbally acknowledging. Sign 4. She creates opportunities for deep or personal conversation. When a woman consistently steers conversations toward personal topics, asks questions about your values and experiences, or shares vulnerable information about herself, she's creating emotional intimacy, a key precursor to romantic connection. The female mind values emotional connection as a foundation for attraction, and creating these deeper conversations is often a way of exploring potential compatibility while maintaining plausible deniability about romantic interest. I worked with a client who was unsure about a female friend's intentions. Their conversations had gradually become more personal, with her asking thoughtful questions about his childhood, his dreams, and his perspectives on relationships. Yet when mutual friends teased them about their closeness, she quickly established they were just friends. This contradiction confused him until he recognized that her desire for deep conversation revealed an interest she wasn't ready to openly acknowledge. By continuing these meaningful exchanges without pressuring her for definition, he allowed their connection to develop naturally until she eventually expressed her feelings directly. Sign 5. She remembers and references specific details about you. The female mind pays close attention to things that matter to it. When a woman remembers small details about your life, preferences, or past conversations, especially details you only mentioned once, it reveals that she's paying unusually close attention to you. This selective memory indicates that you occupy significant mental real estate for her, regardless of how casual she might act. This might manifest as her remembering your coffee preference weeks after you mentioned it, referring to a story you told in passing, or noting a change in your appearance that others miss. These aren't random observations. They were evidence of heightened attention that typically accompanies attraction. Even when a woman is consciously trying to conceal her interest, this detailed awareness often reveals what she's not explicitly stating. Sign 6. She exhibits subtle jealousy or heightened interest when other women enter the picture. This reaction is particularly revealing because it bypasses conscious control. When a woman who normally seems indifferent suddenly becomes more attentive when you mention other women, or notices when others show interest in you, she's displaying a protective response that indicates concealed attraction. This might manifest as her asking seemingly casual questions about your interactions with other women, positioning herself closer to you when others are present, or suddenly becoming more engaged in conversation when she perceives potential competition. These behaviors often occur outside her conscious awareness, making them reliable indicators of genuine interest she might be deliberately concealing at a conscious level. I coached a client through a situation where a woman in his social circle consistently maintained friendly but somewhat distant behavior, until he mentioned a date he had planned with someone else. Suddenly, she found reasons to text him more frequently and suggested group activities that, coincidentally, conflicted with his date. This timing wasn't random. It was a response to perceived scarcity that revealed feelings she had been concealing. Now that you understand why women hide their attraction and how to recognize the signs, the next question is, what should you do when you recognize these patterns? Based on years of research and coaching experience, Ivy developed a 3-step approach that respects both her psychological process and your own self-worth. Step 1. Maintain consistent confidence without pushing for definition. When you recognize that a woman is hiding her attraction, the worst thing you can do is call her out directly or pressure her to acknowledge her feelings. Instead, continue engaging with her authentically, demonstrating through your behavior that you are comfortable with the current dynamic while remaining open to deepening connection. This approach allows her to feel safe, gradually revealing more of her interest without feeling pressured or exposed. The key here is genuine confidence, not arrogance or indifference, but a centered self-assurance that doesn't need immediate validation. When you interact with her from this place of inner stability, you create psychological safety that actually facilitates her becoming more comfortable expressing her attraction. Remember, her concealment often stems from uncertainty about how her feelings will be received. Your consistent, confident presence addresses that uncertainty more effectively than any words could. Step 2. Create opportunities for connection without expectation. Rather than waiting for her to reveal her interest, take initiative in creating low-pressure opportunities for deeper connection. Suggest activities related to shared interests. Create situations where natural conversation can develop, and demonstrate through your actions that you enjoy her company without needing anything beyond the present moment. This approach works because it addresses multiple psychological factors simultaneously. It demonstrates your genuine interest while respecting her pace of emotional disclosure. It creates experiences that naturally facilitate connection without explicitly framing them as romantic. And perhaps most importantly, it shows through your actions rather than your words that you are the kind of man who understands the natural rhythm of attraction. I coached a client named Mark who was interested in a woman who showed several signs of concealed attraction but maintained verbal ambiguity about her feelings. Rather than pressing for clarity, he invited her to an art exhibition related to a conversation they had weeks earlier. This thoughtful invitation demonstrated his attention to her interests while creating a natural context for connection. During their time together, he focused entirely on the present experience, rather than seeking confirmation of her feelings. This approach allowed her to relax into their connection without feeling pressured, and by the end of the evening, she was the one suggesting their next meeting. Step 3. Respect your own value and maintain healthy boundaries. While understanding female psychology is important, equally important is maintaining your self-respect throughout this process. This means continuing to live your full life, pursuing your goals, and remaining open to other connections, rather than focusing exclusively on someone who is not clearly reciprocating interest. This isn't a T about playing games, it's about maintaining a healthy psychological position. When you orient your life entirely around someone who has an T explicitly expressed interest, you create an imbalanced dynamic that actually makes it less likely she'll feel comfortable revealing her attraction. Women are drawn to men who have full, engaging lives independent of romantic validation. By maintaining healthy boundaries and continuing to develop yourself and your interests, you become more attractive while protecting your emotional well-being. The truth that most men miss is that female attraction flourishes in an environment of psychological safety and respect. By understanding why she might be hiding her interest, recognizing the signs of concealed attraction, and responding with confident patience rather than pressure, you create exactly the conditions that allow her to gradually become more comfortable expressing her feelings. This isn't about manipulation or games. It's about understanding the natural psychology of attraction and creating space for authentic connection to develop. I've seen this approach transform countless relationships. There was a client who had been in the friend zone with a woman for months, confused by her mixed signals and apparent ambivalence. Once he understood the psychology we have discussed today and implemented these 3 steps, their dynamic shifted dramatically. Within weeks, she was initiating contact, creating opportunities to be alone together, and eventually explicitly expressing feelings she'd been concealing all along. Not because he used manipulation tactics or pressure, but because he created the psychological safety for her to reveal what had been there beneath the surface. Remember that understanding female psychology isn't TI about control, it's about creating the conditions for authentic connection. When you recognize that her concealed attraction isn't to personal rejection, but rather a complex psychological response, you gain the perspective to engage with her in ways that facilitate genuine connection rather than confusion or frustration. By maintaining confident authenticity, creating opportunities without expectation, and respecting both her process and your own value, you transform what could be a frustrating situation into an opportunity for meaningful connection. If this video opened your eyes to something you've been experiencing, hit that like button and subscribe for more insights into female psychology that most men never discover. Drop a comment below sharing your experience with hidden attraction. Have you noticed these signs in your interactions? How did you respond? Your story might help other men navigating similar situations. And if you want to dive deeper into understanding female psychology in relationships, check out the link in the description for resources that will transform how you connect with women. Until next time, remember, true confidence comes from understanding, not control.